Aloha, aloha, it's Sunday. It's another Coito show, and I am honored to be joined by another esteemed guest, sports guy, now turned candidate for Honolulu there, and we're so proud to see his name up there, and we welcome him into the show. So aloha, Keith Amemiya. Aloha, how are you today, Keith?
Doing good, Wayne. Thanks for having me.
This is so weird. We were just talking. It's football weather because summer is turning to fall. So all of our natural, our tendencies at this time of year is to turn on football, turn on OC16, watch high school football, watch college football. I mean, how are you dealing with it? Because I know you're a huge football fan yourself.
Yeah, it's tough, to not have football and all the other sports, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
Even girls volleyball, women's volleyball, and all the other fall sports. And so we're relegated to watching, NBA playoffs and Major League Baseball games in front of empty gyms and stadiums.
And cardboard.
Yeah, that too. Right. And so it's tough. And you and I are sports fans, and so many other people. And this would be the part of the year we're very excited about because it's the kickoff to the football season.
Mm-hmm.
But alas, we're not going to have it for the foreseeable future. Unfortunate.
Do you think pandemic and sports and just the effects of it right now? I don't want to start off with doom and gloom, but is it scary to you? Because just from an aspect of where you've seen administrators have to deal with budgets, and it's always year to year kind of. I mean, how afraid of you are in the sustenance of, I guess, interscholastic, intercollegiate sports?
Well, I'm very concerned because the problem with this pandemic is none of us in our lifetimes have ever dealt with it. The last pandemic in the United States was about 100 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't really have a template or a precedence on how to deal with it. And one of the scariest parts is that it's unknown how long more the pandemic's going to last.
Mm-hmm.
There's hope that there's a vaccine that'll be created soon, and we hope that'll help, but there's no guarantee. I've been reading that vaccine alone may not wipe out COVID-19. So that's the really difficult part. It's hard to plan ahead. It's hard to say, if we had a light at the end of the tunnel, light with certainty, then maybe we could deal with it better. But who knows? And like you, I don't want to be doom and gloom, but
Mm-hmm.
we can't say for certain that there'll be football in the spring or even next fall until we get a better handle on how we're going to curb the spread of COVID-19 across Hawaii, across the country, and across the globe.
Well, this year, a lot of administrators have had to make the very difficult decision of calling off sports, like you said, not only football, but volleyball, soccer, a lot of these traditional fall sports. Being in that position that you were as HHSAA, Hawaii High School Athletics Association Executive Director, talk about just all of the elements and all of the background story, I think, that goes into how tough it is to make that call.
It was surely a really tough call. I keep in touch with my successor at the Hawaii High School Athletic Association, Chris Chun, who's the current executive director. And it was a tough decision for him and the other high school administrators, whether it's the principals or athletic directors. I mean, not only is football important on the high school level in terms of generating revenue to support the athletic program, the entire athletic program, just like it is on the college level, but first and foremost, we have sports on the college and high school level for the athletes, for the student athletes. And so my heart breaks for those student athletes who were training hard in the off season, gearing up and getting excited for the upcoming season. And in many cases, especially for our seniors on the high school and even the college level, they may be robbed of their senior season. And many high school athletes, past and present, can relate to the fact that you always dream about and imagine your senior year in particular and finishing off strong with your teammates and striving for a championship. And that dream may be gone. And so that's the most difficult part in terms of the lost season in sports that we have right now.
Well, also the student athletes, sports has been a gateway for them to go to college and to earn scholarships, and just talk about in that position some of the stories that maybe a lot of people maybe haven't heard, or some of the personal and intimate relationships you might have had with some of the athletes who went on to maybe make it big even.
Sure, sports it's beyond just playing the actual sport itself. On the high school level, I've seen time and again, it's a lifesaver for
Mm-hmm.
some of these kids. It's the carrot at the end of the stick. It was the prime motivator of why they went to school, went to classes, stayed on course, stayed out of trouble. Sports, teaches so many values and frankly keep some kids out of trouble, and it's the only feasible means to go on to college and have
Mm-hmm.
college paid for. So
Mm-hmm.
sports is just so important, and to not have it this fall and perhaps beyond for the foreseeable future is really unfortunate. When I was at the Hawaii High School Athletic Association, I did have the opportunity to meet many outstanding student athletes. I mean, who not only did well
Mm-hmm.
on the field, but I'm proud of them because they made a life for themselves, beyond sports. They utilize sports to get them to go to college and have their college paid for when ordinarily they wouldn't have had the opportunity. So for sure, there's been notable athletes I've gotten to know well and their families, whether it's Manti Teo or
Mm-hmm.
Marcus Mariota, or even Molokai High School's dual sport star Kalea Adolfo. My family and I got to know Kalea very well from when she was a young child, because we have a lot of ties on that island, and
Mm-hmm.
she was such an outstanding athlete. So my my family, my wife's son and I, spoke to her family about spending the summers of her high school years here on Oahu to train on Oahu, where the competition is better, where
Mm-hmm.
there's more competition, and she could play basketball and volleyball on the club level, and play with the Oahu girls
Mm-hmm.
and go on to the mainland with them and be showcased. And as we all know, or many of us know, she went on to star at the University of Hawaii in both volleyball and basketball, and that's a tough feat, as you know,
Mm-hmm.
Wayne,
Mm-hmm.
to let alone excel in one sport on the
Mm.
Division 1 level, but two is really difficult. And we're so proud of Calais for what she's done on the playing fields, but also she's just a wonderful human being. And right now, she's a PE teacher at Molokai Intermediate School on her home island, and she's the head varsity girls basketball coach at her alma mater. And she's really doing well. And it's those kind of success stories that make me really
Mm-hmm.
feel good and feel proud that I, along with many others, had a hand in molding and shaping tens of thousands of high school student athletes over the past 20 years or so.
And the thing that's really cool about that too, you talked about your ties to Molokai, and I know you have ties to just through sports, Kalihi, Hawaii Kai, Mililani, and that has been an avenue for you to get into a lot of homes and onto playing fields from across the entire socioeconomic swath across Hawaii. And what has that taught you as well?
Well, it was very gratifying to be able to, especially when I ran the Hawaii High School Athletic Association. But even afterwards, public
Mm-hmm.
service is just an important part of my life, and
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy meeting people and trying to help people wherever I can. And so when I ran the HHSAA, I did have an opportunity, Wayne, to meet thousands of families
Mm-hmm.
across this island, including working class families, and
Mm-hmm.
I developed a lot of great friendships and a lot of respect and appreciation and admiration for how hard these working class families worked
Mm-hmm.
to provide for their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And in
Mm-hmm.
Hawaii and on Oahu, it's really tough to make ends meet, as we all know. And that really struck me. It motivated me. It's one of the reasons, frankly, I'm running for mayor today, is to make Oahu a better place and do my part, because there's so many good families, so many good people on our island that are struggling, and I want to do my part on a broader level, on an island wide level, and see what I can do in politics to make all of our lives better, because it's such a challenge to make ends meet here on
Mm-hmm.
Oahu.
Well, it was deja vu for some of us. I graduated at the time of the last recession, and I was starting working in athletics in Division II, and there's such a huge crunch, obviously, everywhere. I mean, if you're not Notre Dame well, I would say even now, right? We're seeing it doesn't matter who you are. Nobody is safe from the effects of this, but you were able to successfully navigate in a lot of ways the last recession and the scare of the loss of JV athletics and a lot of sports as we know it. And that campaign was called Save Our Sports. And when we look back at it historically, everyone looks at it as a huge success. And talk about that specific experiment for you and how you were able to pull it off and be successful with it.
Well, to use a sports term, it was a team effort, and many people got involved. But as you mentioned, about 10 years ago, during the last economic downturn here in Hawaii, the state had to make some tough choices and cut certain government services, including in the public schools. And one of the proposals was to eliminate JV sports. And I and many other people thought that would be devastating to not have junior varsity sports. It would rob kids of the opportunity to play sports, and as I mentioned, and you and I talked about earlier in this show, how valuable sports is beyond the actual sport itself, that it saves lives, it's a carrot at the end of the stick. And so I started up the Save Our Sports fundraising campaign and enlisted the support of businesses and foundations and many individuals across Oahu and beyond. I mean, we got donations from foreign countries. We got donations from people even on the U.S. mainland. We got coverage from publications like the New York Times that highlighted our efforts. And we were lucky that within 3 months we were able to raise about $1.8 million, and we're able to save junior varsity sports from being eliminated for the following 2 years. And what's great about that effort was that the legislature saw how important sports was to our communities, that hasn't been an issue since, that no one, including this current downturn, that sports is too important to eliminate or cut. So I'm proud of that, and that we were able to save sports and allow tens of thousands of student athletes to continue their dream and follow their passion in sports. And I also want to add that through Save Our Sports and running the HHSAA, you brought up a good point, that I was able to go through and visit many communities many times over. So I know this island very well. I know the issues in every community. I know that there's a big difference between Nanakuli and Waianae. There's a big difference between Haula and Laie, even though Haula and Laie are all part of the geographic
blend right into each other. But you're right.
And so I think those experiences and relationships I've still been able to maintain will help me and serve me well as our next mayor.
Well, and in terms of the development of Island Keiki and the importance of sports, another person you talked about, Keiki Okaaina, Marcus Mariota, started a nonprofit, and you assist in a lot of those efforts as well, and collaborate with the Motivate Foundation. They're so fun to have at the UH games. Just talk about the foundation and talk about them coming to the games and what sparked that as well.
Sure. So, I don't want to take too credit in terms of the foundation, but I'm certainly involved. I mean, it's really the brainchild of Marcus and his mom and dad, Toa and Elena in particular. But because of my ties to my employer, Island Holdings, who's the parent of Island Insurance, that's how I got to know the Mariota family really well. And that's how I got to partner with Island Insurance and the Motivate Foundation on many very worthwhile and rewarding projects, including the funding of several thousand keiki, many of them underprivileged to attend University of Hawaii football games for the past several seasons. And as you pointed out, Wayne, when they come to the stadium, they add a lot of energy, a lot of volume and enthusiasm to the games. And a lot of them had, prior to that experience, had never been to Aloha Stadium, never been to Hawaii football game. And so, as you mentioned, sports bring has so many rewards, and I was fortunate enough through sports to be able to meet Marcus and the Mariota family, and not only get to know one of our star athletes that have come from our islands, but also a good human being. And what I like about Marcus is that he knows the importance of giving back and not forgetting where you came from, and to, if you're fortunate enough to have done well financially, it's important to give back to others that are less fortunate. And so that's one of the many things that Motivate Foundation has done. I mean, they've provided meals to uh, low income public school kids, another partnership with Island Insurance that even I helped out during the first stay at home order in March, where over 14,000 meals were served to low income kids, healthcare workers, senior citizens, and others. So, Marcus is such a proud example of what our island has produced, not only on the field, but off the field as well.
Well, Marcus will be in a new uniform this year. I know that you said in a Facebook post that wherever Marcus is, that's your team you're going to be following. So, what do you think about his situation right now in Vegas?
Well, I mean, I know a lot of Hawaii people are happy that he's there because Vegas is like our ninth island,
Of
and
course.
so yet another excuse to go there and cheer on Marcus and the Raiders. But I think he's in a good position. He's well liked by the head coach John Gruden, who followed him from his college career and beyond. And so hopefully Marcus gets his shot. I know he's ready. He had his share of injuries when he was at Tennessee, and hopefully he doesn't encounter any more when he's with the Raiders and stays healthy. My understanding is he's as healthy as he's been for a long time, and so I like his chances of getting a shot sooner or later with the Raiders.
I like his chances too, and we hope we're sending our aloha to Marcus. In this time of year as well.
I got his Motivate shirt on.
Oh,
So
okay, cool. No wonder. I thought I saw. That's a cool logo, right? Yeah, you got to show us the logo. Oh, there you go. Love it.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So Marcus.
that the screams at the games, just their exuberance that these Motivate Foundation kids show, it adds to the environment and it adds to a game atmosphere, especially at Division 1 level, that is so critical and able to establish a fan base that will be loyal and new fans that will come in. So with that being said, because obviously very Hawaii football associated show here, so we want to do as much as we can to keep UH football alive, especially at this time, and keep the enthusiasm for it high. But given that there's a big government project, state project to fund a new stadium, and there's a rail station that's going to be there in Halawa. Talk about how you, if you perhaps become mayor, will try and leverage that asset and leverage the excitement that we have for sports, like you said, that we learned at the legislature. Hey, people in Hawaii love sports. How can we, with that specific project, continue to grow our economic initiatives and cultural initiatives through sport?
Sure. I mean, I served on the Aloha Stadium Authority and did what I could to get the funding from the legislature for the new stadium. So I'm well aware about the new stadium plans, and I'm excited as everyone else is. And as you pointed out, I mean, it's great for the University of Hawaii football team. It's great for the high school teams that play there, but it's just good for the Hawaii economy, the Oahu economy in particular. You couple the new stadium with the development surrounding the stadium, like you've been to many stadiums on the mainland where it stimulates construction and development and it stimulates the economy because stadiums now are surrounded by hotels, by condominiums, by restaurants, by retail. It creates a very exciting atmosphere. It provides more affordable housing that's sorely needed here on Oahu, and it also provides the rail line provides another way for people to go to and from Aloha Stadium, and you and I have been lucky to go to other venues on the mainland. I mean, that's sometimes the best and
Yeah.
only way
Yeah.
to get to is through public transportation. You wouldn't want to drive to some of those stadiums because the traffic is horrendous, and the parking is unavailable or way too expensive. So I'm excited about the rail project and the new Aloha Stadium that's in the works. But from a city standpoint, well, obviously, I love sports, and I'll do whatever I can to always promote sports.
Mm-hmm.
But where the mayor can help sports
Mm-hmm.
on Oahu is I really I'm big on sports tourism.
Mm.
We have great year-round weather. Everyone loves to come to Hawaii. We have facilities for large-scale national soccer tournaments, for example, or we can have baseball and softball tournaments at Central Oahu Regional Park.
Mm.
And I know that the AYSO has had national tournaments at Waipio Peninsula Soccer Park. I mean, we have so many venues that we can attract to have uh, large scale sports tournaments that bring in a lot of money to our economy.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of baseball and softball, Dwayne Kurisu is partnering with Perfect Game, and they are hoping to have a large national baseball tournament and a softball tournament next July, involving
Wow.
hundreds of teams coming from all over the country. So I'm excited about that. I'm involved in that project as well, and so as mayor, I would try to do what I can to have as many of these tournaments. Another example, the convention center
Mm-hmm.
can hold multiple volleyball matches at the same time,
Yeah.
or even basketball games, and they've already done that. And I would seek to continue that and keep growing our economy and keep promoting sports here on Oahu.
Well, when you were growing up in Hawaii as well, on Oahu, there were some minor league teams. There was a baseball team that you probably went in with your friends or your uncle and aunt to go see the Islanders play or something. But that is so cool, right? To have that team to identify with and a pro team in Hawaii. Do you see in any sport maybe that happening again? Would that be something you'd like to see in particular?
No, I do. There's talk about trying to bring another minor league team
Mm-hmm.
back to Hawaii, and that would be exciting. Yes, when I was younger, I'm young. I'm older than you, so you're too young to remember the Hawaii Islanders like I did, and it was great to go to watch the games. It was actually frankly better at Honolulu Stadium than Aloha Stadium, because
Mm.
Aloha Stadium was probably a little too big for a minor league
Mm.
franchise.
Yeah.
You don't get the same intimacy in a 50,000 seat
Yeah.
stadium than you do in a 20,000 seat old style wooden bleachers stadium like
Mm-hmm.
Honolulu Stadium, nestled in the middle of urban Honolulu. But it was fun. There were fond memories for me going to that game, and it's half the time you watch the game, but half the time you're just playing with your friends, running around, and that was
Yeah.
well. And so I hope we can continue doing that and down the line. And I know there's been talk of building a minor league size stadium
Mm.
somewhere, whether it's the old Honolulu Stadium Park or
Mm.
even Alawa.
Mm. Yeah.
I just think we need to try to do that. And going back to Aloha Stadium, Wayne, there's a lot of potential besides UH football
Mm-hmm.
and high school football. There's the chance to bring rugby here,
Yeah.
and rugby is a very popular sport in the Asia Pacific region, and everyone loves to come to Hawaii. It would be exciting to have, for example, New Zealand's All Blacks team come
Yeah.
here,
Mm.
maybe play a team from Australia. You would have a mixture of local fans, but also fans or tourists coming from foreign countries and spending money and
Mm-hmm.
helping our economy. Even soccer is popular in the Asia Pacific region, and I would do whatever I could to attract more international type soccer matches, which is becoming more and more popular in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
and even here in Hawaii. Soccer is probably or arguably one of the most popular global sports. It's
Absolutely.
not as popular in the United States, but I think that's changing and it's increasing in popularity.
Absolutely, I totally agree and second that. And I think these burgeoning sports, like burgeoning maybe for America, maybe not on the global level because rugby and cricket and all these sports have been around, but why not Hawaii, right, as a perfect venue for some of these tournaments and championships? But something about sports too that a lot of us who play sports, who have coached or been a part of it, we identify in some way, and a lot of it is just the human aspect of it, the victory, the sacrifice, and all of those things. And clearly for you, sports has been important from when you're a small kid as well. So, talk about some of those formative years and how sports helped to develop you and in your childhood as well.
So when I was younger, I always enjoyed playing sports, and
Mm-hmm.
so I played them all: basketball, football, baseball. We went to the beach a lot and hung out and body surfed and whatnot. And I mean, interestingly enough, I mean, I was a marginal athlete, and so everyone wonders. They assume I was some high school sports star. I got hired by the HHSAA. I think it was more my attorney background. But
Mm-hmm.
as I got older and into high school, it was pretty clear I was not going to be, an NFL, NFL star or Major League Baseball star. So I pivoted. I wanted to continue playing sports because
Mm-hmm.
I just enjoyed it. So I
Mm-hmm.
I, I started running and got involved in track and
Okay.
cross country in my high school years. And you know, um, the point I want to make sure I make in talking about sports is not just the star athletes benefit from playing sports. Even the bench warmers like myself benefit
Mm-hmm.
because sports teaches you a lot of values that carry you through your adult lives,
Mm-hmm.
like hard work, perseverance, teamwork. Learning to get along with one another and working together towards a common goal. And so, just because you're not a superstar doesn't mean you should participate in sports. And
Mm-hmm.
you learn a lot of good things by playing in sports, and I'm a perfect example of that.
Well, along the way, you've been able to, like you said, make special relationships with citizen athletes who have gone on to do great things. But a lot of them have also, remembered you and have come, during this election season, come out in support for you. And, just talk about what that's been like. I know Vili came out, and he's obviously going to be someone for UH football fans will remember forever. But talk about what that's like seeing some of these people just be really vocal for you.
Well, it feels really good, and as we all know, Billy the Warrior is a very passionate person, and so is his wife Linda.
Yep.
Linda's a big fan of mine, and I'm so lucky to have both of them in my corner, so to speak. But also, people like Calais Adolfo
Mm-hmm.
who spoke on my behalf, or Beth McLaughlin, Chris
Mm-hmm.
McLaughlin's wife.
Mm-hmm.
She was a longtime athletic director at La Pietra, and she was my HHSAA girls volleyball coordinator. She ran the state tournaments for me, the girls
Ah.
volleyball tournament. She's a former Olympian. Sports. I, I met so many good people along the way, and that's the most rewarding part of the
Mm-hmm.
relationships, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Just sports brings out the best in people for the most part, and people who get involved in sports from a coaching standpoint or an athletic administration standpoint. I mean, they're just solid human beings. Whether it's Beth and Chris
Mm-hmm.
McLaughlin, or I've even met Mark Rolfing,
Mm.
the NBC
Mm-hmm.
golf.
Yeah.
We got to know each other well. Dave Shoji,
Yeah.
former Rainbow Wahine volleyball coach, retired volleyball coach. His wife Mary, his children, daughter Kobe, and the sons Kavika, and Eric.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I so many lifelong relationships I developed through sports, and that's the most gratifying part of it.
Well, a lot of like you mentioned McLaughlin and Shoji, and they're tied to UH. Is really huge for the state and for the program and for, the legacy of Rainbow Athletics. But as we move forward, with UH pushing into the future, do you see a cultural shift in kind of how where UH Athletics stands amongst priorities for local people? And do you think we need to? Is there a way that we can push because we talk about this all the time. Of course, maybe the pipe dream of going to a bigger conference, right, or something. But how can we, in the absence of going to the Pac-12 or something, continue to show that this is a priority and that we don't want it to be a liability for us too. We want it to be something that we can be economically prosperous around too. And do you think that's something that's still important for you as well?
Oh, for sure, because the University of Hawaii athletics program is our only major university program in the state. So they are truly Hawaii's team. So it's important that we all do what we can to support that program. Whether it's us as individuals buying tickets or corporate sponsorships or the like, or even the legislature, frankly,
Mm-hmm.
they play an important role in ensuring the viability and success of the University of Hawaii program, including providing the funding for a much needed athletic facility
Mm-hmm.
improvement. So, we all need to rally behind that program because it's our one and only major team, and also it's a source for many of our local products to get a college
Mm-hmm.
education and showcase their abilities in front of the entire state. Now, you did point out, um, it's more a blessing than a curse, but
Mm-hmm.
our athletes, and that was part of my vision when I started the Hawaii High School Athletic Association, is we always had incredible athletes. And
Mm-hmm.
for a state of our small size compared to a lot of other states, I always felt if we showcased our athletes more, they would have even more opportunities. Now, certainly I cannot take credit for the success of Tua and Marcus
Mm-hmm.
and Manti
Mm-hmm.
and many, many other athletes. But I did make it a point to encourage mainland teams to come here and compete, whether it's De La Salle High School or Long Beach Poly,
Mm-hmm.
or encourage Hawaii teams to travel to the mainland, or to try to come up with funding to let our girls volleyball players or some of our junior female golfers to be able to go on to the mainland during the summers and be seen by college coaches. And the results speak for themselves. I mean, we have a high proportion of Division 1 student athletes, and Division 2 and 3 for that matter,
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
come out of our state and are able to continue their athletic careers uh, in college. And that's something I feel really good about. I mean, as an example, I mean, I can go on, but some of the examples of what we've done from a relatively small state, I mean, we've had Brian Clay, an Olympic gold
Mm-hmm.
medalist,
Mm-hmm.
uh, made us proud. He's from Castle High School. We've
Mm-hmm.
had, you know, champion Carissa Moore is our current
Yeah.
world. John Florence is also
Mm-hmm.
a world surfing champ.
Mm-hmm.
We have Max Holloway, and now that's not a
Yeah.
high school sport, but
Yeah.
he's done us proud as an athlete. We have lots of other surfers, from Zeke Lau to
Yeah.
Paul Casamero to many, many others that have done us proud. And another amazing example to me is within the span of, I think, 5 or 6 years, we had three Heisman Trophy finalists or near
Yeah.
finalists. You know,
Yeah.
Malachi, then Marcus, and then Tua, because of injuries. Well, he became a finalist his junior
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
And how, Wayne, that is just unbelievable if you
It,
think
it
about
is.
it.
It is. It is incredible. And I tell I tell my cousins too. I mean, just to have that opportunity to look up to somebody and see like, oh, that guy looks just like me. For me as an actor, seeing people on television look like me, I'm like, oh, I could be in this or something. It's just that empowering to see you represented in media, and seeing Marcus there in New York. Wow, that was so cool.
Well, and so that's another great point about to the potential detriment of the University of Hawaii. I mean, the benefit of now our student athletes are recruited nationwide. They
Mm-hmm.
don't just go to the Pac-12
Mm-hmm.
anymore
Yeah.
or other Mountain West schools. I mean, all the top schools across the country are recruiting our football players, our girls volleyball
Mm-hmm.
players, etc. And it's an amazing thing. 2 years ago, you got to help me out here, but we had Jordan Ta'amu starting
Yeah.
at we had Tua at Alabama. Oh, and Mackenzie
And
Milton.
Mackenzie at UCF. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean
look,
three of the
that's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
unbelievable. And so I'm so proud that we've been able to showcase the talent we have, because we do have talent on this island. And I just knew with enough exposure and television from the national
Mm-hmm.
level and national coverage, and then getting our student athletes to the mainland to compete in camps and clinics and club tournaments, that they would get noticed on a nationwide level.
Well, that's what you talked about, just the webcasting and the televising, and that deal that you had inked with, I think it was K5 or whoever it was at the time. But do you see that ability to expand upon that, especially now where how much easier it is to webcast something. Do you see that as a future as well for high school sports?
Yes, I mean, I certainly do. It's already happening on the college level,
Mm-hmm.
where the Power Five conferences for sure all have their own networks, and
Yeah.
almost every game is televised, whether it's football or
Mm-hmm.
women's volleyball or men's basketball, softball. And so I hope one day to see that on the high school level here
Mm-hmm.
locally, where every game is streamed live,
Mm.
so that everyone can see it, from friends, family to grandma, grandpa, or people who live on the U.S. mainland or
Mm-hmm.
or elsewhere. And I do know that a lot of people do watch like state championship games that are
Yeah.
streamed live on OC16, no matter where they are across this globe, and that's a great thing. And hopefully, one day we can televise, like I said, every single high
Mm-hmm.
school competition if we can. And with technology now, as you know, it can be done. I mean,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
even relatively inexpensive cameras
Mm-hmm.
or even camera phones can
Yeah.
sometimes do the trick, especially as you know in a high school gym where it's much more intimate
Mm-hmm.
and confined. You can get some pretty good quality off a good smartphone nowadays, right, Wayne?
Yes. 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 I know. I totally agree. I'm nodding because like I really am kind of surprised we haven't had maybe Hawaii sport fans. Maybe that's what I gotta do next is recruit a bunch of play-by-play people and camera people. But I mean, just the power of that, just that extension away from the field itself, not just being a player, but kids are getting into, like learning how to do color or something, or learning how to other aspects of athletics too.
Yes, and that's something I wanted to do but didn't have time to complete when I was at the HHSAA,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's something that hopefully Chris Chun, the current director, is working on, or maybe I'll even help him down the road,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because, like you pointed out, it's not only great to showcase the competition, but it's a great learning tool for aspiring play-by-play broadcasters or people who want to get involved in the behind the scenes production of a
Mm-hmm.
sports cast, and even people who love watching games and taking stats.
Yep.
There's actually a lot of apps and software now where you can do it. I mean, my son competed in high school sports, until he advanced to college,
Mm-hmm.
but even parents now can keep score of baseball games and
Mm-hmm.
track it. So sometimes when I was busy and my son was playing in a game, I would follow it on my smartphone,
Mm-hmm.
in real time, the game. And, they would down to the pitch count, or, balls and strikes, and how many outs, and how many pitches my son threw in a game. It's phenomenal. So the
Mm-hmm.
technology is there, to
Mm-hmm.
your point.
Well, and also something I remarked about your campaign as well is that you seem to be very technologically savvy and taking advantage of some of these ways that we communicate with each other today, like social media. Have you found that to be effective in terms of building obviously your campaign, but also in terms of bringing people together?
No question. Social media is a great means to communicate and bring people together, for a lot of reasons. First of all, it's instantaneous, and it broadcasts to the whole world,
Mm-hmm.
really,
Mm-hmm.
potentially, and it's inexpensive.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically free. And fourth, and perhaps most importantly, Wayne, it's the way younger people get their information
Yep.
nowadays.
Yep.
I have a college age son, and his generation doesn't read a hard copy of the newspaper. They don't
Mm-hmm.
watch TV news. They don't watch network TV anymore. Most of
Mm-hmm.
them, they watch TV. It's Hulu or
Mm-hmm.
Netflix or Amazon Prime or other things. And so the point is, in a campaign, the only way to get to them is through social media, whether it's Instagram or I Facebook or Twitter, or even posting some of our ads on YouTube. That's the only way to communicate with them. I know TikTok's getting popular, but I'm not gonna go. I'm too old. I think I'll lose votes if I try to dance on TikTok. My my son will be mortified. I don't want to embarrass him, so I'm staying away from TikTok for the time being.
Okay, so we won't see any like choreography from Kizo and Mia on TikTok then. Okay, we won't. I won't hold my breath for that, but that would be fun to see actually. But like you talked about specifically the younger demographic, and when it comes to elections, it's a really tough group to get to vote. I was a super nerdy kid. I missed like the 2000 election by like a few months, and I had to vote in the kids' election. But I sign wave for people. I don't even want to say who because it's crazy. But it's a fun thing for kids if you're into it. But I was like one out of like 300 kids who was like kind of into that thing. But how can we get some of these younger 20s? I mean, is that something that you've been focusing on or seen success with in your campaign?
Yes, so we've been pretty successful in reaching out to that demographic. It helps to have
Hmm.
a child that who's in that age demographic, so he can spread the word through
True.
his friends and through social media. But also, the younger generation is much more socially aware
Hmm.
than I was, frankly, at their age, and for whatever reason, they're just more civic minded
Hmm.
and aware of the issues and are more vocal and proactive about it. So that's a good thing. And we've had I've had a lot of success in getting people of my son's age, in their young
Hmm.
20s to get involved in the campaign, and even in their 30s, people in their 30s, because they're just more aware. And I think social media has helped in that regard. But
Hmm.
also, there's a lot of issues that younger people are concerned about, as they should be,
Hmm.
including climate change, for
Yep.
example,
Hmm.
or the social justice issues that are at the forefront, like Black Lives Matter
Hmm.
and others,
Hmm.
and even the presidential election. I mean,
Hmm.
I'm not going to go there right now,
Hmm.
but it's the president. I mean, like him or not, he's polarizing. Either
Yeah.
you really like him or you really do not, and
Hmm.
so it's galvanized young
Yes.
people on both sides, frankly, Wayne,
Yeah.
to get involved in the election. So actually, there's kind of a resurgence going on right now with young people and politics, and I love it, frankly. I mean, we need younger people to get involved, and they're actually understanding, uh, especially through the power of social media, they can effect change
Hmm.
uh,
Hmm.
if they band together, and that by being indifferent and not paying attention is to their detriment. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of enthusiasm and hope in that younger generation in terms of getting involved in politics.
And also, that like you said, there's so many issues like climate change, like you know, obviously June with Black Lives Matter, and we had Juneteenth. It was also Pride Month, and these are all issues that are resonate with younger kids. It's like normal to grow up with gay friends or have
Right.
black or Indian or Micronesian or whatever, and it's just that adds to our strength, that diversity. Do you see that also as a way that Hawaii, in terms of our diversity there, and in terms of how younger people are growing up with a very different demographic too, in the whole world, even the U.S. Right? It's getting browner, it's changing, it's starting to look kind of like Hawaii. How do you see that in terms of affecting policy change, kind of moving forward as well?
Well, as you pointed out, we're kind of at the forefront in terms of race relations. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we're not perfect here,
Mm-hmm.
but we're ahead of the curve compared to mainland states.
Yeah.
We can always be better, like I said, but because as far as as long as you and I have grown up, I mean, that's all we've known is
Mm-hmm.
a true melting pot
Mm-hmm.
of family and friends, and I mean, we live in a mixed race, mixed ethnicity world, especially in Hawaii. And to me, that's a good thing
Mm-hmm.
because you learn to respect and understand and appreciate all different types of cultures. And so, that certainly has helped, in my opinion, in terms of people understanding and respecting one another, especially in the younger generations. The other big issue that I wanted to point out about why younger people are getting more and more involved in politics is because of, especially in Hawaii, the high cost of living, Wayne. You know,
Mm-hmm.
really hard to make ends meet. And
Yeah.
many people in their 20s and 30s and even older are being forced to make hard decisions about whether to stay here in Hawaii, the place they grew up in and the place they love,
Hmm.
or move to the mainland because it's just too hard to make ends meet financially. And so they're getting much more active and vocal about the high cost of housing, for example, that makes it just unfeasible for them to stay here.
And I have to admit, it's super impressive to see. You got a lot of kids up there early in the morning waving for you on the side of the road. Just talk about that support too from small kids too.
Yeah, it's exciting to have them get involved, and a lot of we call it a community powered campaign. That we've been lucky to have people from all walks of life help out in the campaign, including many first time campaign volunteers, many first time voters, and because they're excited and enthused, and they know that I'm running for them.
Hmm.
I'm running to. Uh, Help them make their lives better, and that I'm not going to be beholden to any special interests, and that like I've done throughout my career, I've always tried to make decisions for the greater good of all of our communities,
Hmm.
and that's how I'll be as mayor. So it is exciting, Wayne, and I have a college age son, and I will tell you, to get them to wake up at the crack of dawn is no easy feat.
Not at all.
They love to sleep in, and so I'm very appreciative of them for getting up super early and waving signs with me across the island.
It's not only that very impressive to be able to get these kids to come together, but you've also been able to identify, like you said, the greater good requires looking at the least amongst us all, right? Or subgroups or minority groups who are at the fringes or disenfranchised in some way. And obviously, we can start on a very basic male and female binary. Obviously, for women, and being able to empower women requires to elevate, amplify their voices. And I know that there's a women for Amemiya, like a subgroup or a campaign group, and just talk about that as well.
Yes, so there's a subgroup of my campaign called Wahine for Amemiya, and it's primarily comprised of younger, first-time campaign volunteers. A lot of them are first-time voters because they're in college or just out of college, and it's exciting that they want to support me. And throughout my career, I've always tried to support females, especially when I was at the HHSAA.
Mm.
We started a lot of sports that were not available to females,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's girls wrestling, girls golf, girls water polo, and many more. And with the addition of Division II or smaller school state tournaments
Mm-hmm.
through classification, we basically doubled the amount of state tournament opportunities for female student athletes. So I've always felt it was important that females had the same opportunities as their male counterparts, and I've tried to make that a hallmark of my career throughout, even after running the HHSAA. And in fact, in my campaign, I have a core campaign team that I work with day in and day out, and they're predominantly female, and
Mm-hmm.
they've been great to work with, and they're smart. They work hard. They're creative, and I just can't thank them enough for being a part of my team.
Well, it's been just about a year, I believe, since you made your announcement. It might be longer than that, I'm not sure. But that Alawa and picking a baseball field too was a very, obviously a deliberate choice on your part, and talk about that.
Right. So we chose to have my campaign announcement. It was a little over a year ago that I
Mm-hmm.
made it, and we chose Alawai Community Park
Mm-hmm.
because it represented kind of my roots and what I was known for, and
Mm.
including running high school sports across the state. And we chose Alawai because it's not only a baseball field, but it also has a softball field right next to it,
Mm-hmm.
and it also is the host of soccer matches,
Mm-hmm.
and canoe paddling in the canal nearby. And
True.
so it was a strategic choice to go there, and it's a community park that's
Mm-hmm.
open to all members of the community of all ages. And so, yes, we thought that was an appropriate place to kick off my campaign, because my campaign, as I said earlier, is for the people. It's for people of all walks of life, and it's a community powered campaign.
Well, it is impressive to see the community, really lend their support to you, or those who have just known you from sports or known you from something else. But definitely the sports part um, is a part of your identity, like you said. Is that something that how do you feel about that label? I guess if someone's like, "Oh, that's the sports guy," you know.
Well, I mean, in many ways, I embrace it
Mm-hmm.
because my sports background was the vehicle for me to get to know all of the
Mm-hmm.
communities on Oahu really, really well. I mean, I was lucky. I mean, not many people get to go to every community across Oahu many times
Mm-hmm.
over and get to know the communities really well. But, I also, as you know, have other facets to my career.
Mm-hmm.
I've
Mm-hmm.
worked in the
Mm-hmm.
private sector as an executive for a long time. I also worked at the University of Hawaii for a while. I also served on the State Board of Education, and the Aloha Stadium Authority. So I have a broad-based set of
Mm-hmm.
experiences and skill sets that I think will serve me well as mayor.
And just talk about how the campaign has run and anything you learned. I think from this experience that maybe you didn't think was gonna happen going into it.
Well, the one thing I didn't expect and no one expected is the COVID-19 pandemic and,
Mm-hmm.
and its impact on campaigning, including right now,
Mm-hmm.
because we have a stay-at-home order in place, and we, can't really campaign like the traditional ways that many people are used to. It's hard to, well, you can't have public events, whether it's stew and rice dinners or coffee hours in
Mm-hmm.
people's living rooms or talk story sessions in Waianae in someone's garage,
Yep.
or a stew and rice dinner in the Mililani High School cafeteria,
Mm.
or to go to bon dances or Filipino parties or whatever you have. So we have to be more creative. And as you pointed out, we've utilized social media. We're sending emails to our supporters more often. We have to invest a little more in TV and radio. So that's a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we've done pretty well in still getting our message out. But in terms of the campaign, no real surprises. Like any major endeavor, it
Mm-hmm.
takes a lot of hard work, a lot of organization, and a lot of teamwork and working together. And I'm lucky I have a very good core of volunteers and supporters who, helped me get to the general election, and hopefully will get me over the top and win the general election. And we're really excited and like our chances in November.
Well, one thing about being a candidate too is to be very vulnerable. You have to open yourself up to not only the praise but a lot of the criticism, sometimes unfair. How has that been for you on a personal level to experience that kind of thing?
Well, yeah, I kind of was used to criticism when I ran high school sports, because that's another area that people are very passionate about,
Mm.
especially in Hawaii, as you know, Wayne. So I kind of was used to that, and I learned that you got to have thick skin. You
Mm-hmm.
have to always do what's right, and if you do what's right, then you shouldn't worry too much about the criticism. But it's also important to listen to the criticism as long as it's constructive,
Mm-hmm.
and communicate often with people. And if you explain why you made a decision, they may not always like it, but they'll accept it for the most part and
Mm-hmm.
respect it. So
Mm-hmm.
communication is always the key. Now, in terms of unfounded accusations or smears, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's an unfortunate part of politics today,
Mm-hmm.
and you just have to address it, and do what you can to counter it. And you hope that enough people know who you really are and what you stand for, and vote for you. And we made it to the general, so fortunately, enough people, a high number of people, saw through the nonsense that was being
Mm-hmm.
brought up by some people, and we were fortunate enough to come through with the victory out of the primary, as I mentioned. And the other point is that in Hawaii, that's not local style, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
to talk badly or talk stink about another person, especially if it's untrue. And I truly believe in many ways that helped me, because people saw through that, and were turned off by it and voted for me.
Well, at the end of the day, it'll be you and Mr. Rick Langiardi, who we had on the show last week, head to head. But just talk about, I mean, just moving forward. Now you're going to the general, and I guess, well, this will be about the end of the show. So kind of give us your final pitch and maybe something that you really wanted to share with us as well.
Well, I just want to thank you for the opportunity, Wayne. Admired you from afar. You're a sports enthusiast like me, and you've been to a lot of great sporting events. And so I've followed your journey, and I'm happy for you and the many other sports fans that have joined you along that journey. But I guess I'll close by saying, I'm running for mayor because we need change, and we need a new style of leadership that really hasn't existed in Hawaii politics for a long, long time. I'm running for mayor because we need a kind of leadership that is inclusive, that listens, that's collaborative, and brings people together. And I think that my career has shown that I'm experienced in executive leadership. I've worked with communities. I know the communities well, and I'm going to continue to do what I've always done in my career and that's to bring people together and work towards what's best for the community at large.
Well, we're excited for you, and we're excited for the next couple of weeks as you start to really get into the grit of as the clock starts to get closer. But thank you so much. We're so grateful that you were able to join us, Keith Amemiya. For everybody out there watching, go follow him, Amemiya for Mayor. I think it's also the website, amemiyaformayor.com. Is that the website as well?
That's correct. That's our website, and we're also on all the most of the social media outlets, from Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. No TikTok yet, but again, thank you, Wayne, for having me. Thank you for your viewers for tuning in, and I guess I'm just grateful to have this opportunity, and I humbly ask for their support in my run for mayor.
Well, mahalo for all for joining us tonight, and for Keith Amemiya. This is Wayne Coito. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of your weekend. Aloha.
All right. Thank you.